There it is, $13,000 check for closing one wholesale deal. When I ask you guys to comment down below and give us ideas for question of the week episodes, we get a lot of variation of how to wholesale, how to close deals, how to find off-market deals to wholesale, all that type of stuff. So today we're gonna head out to the property that I just wholesaled to get this check, and I will take you guys step by step through every detail on how to close a wholesale deal from front to back. And towards the end, I'll explain how this deal almost blew up 2 days before closing, and that'll teach you the lesson to never ever celebrate until you have the check in hand. Doug's coming up right now. You can keep it rolling though. Duh. Yeah, kind of funny. So we roll up out here and the seller was actually still here. I think he was getting the last bit of his mail. So we said our final goodbyes, and but now we're here. First things first, how do we even get this lead? This lead came in through our website, through a Google ad. We spend about $3,000 a month on Google ads. So we pay to be in that first position when you type in, you know, sell my house fast or something like that. So the seller here went online and found us that way, submitted a form through the website, and then I hopped on the phone with him. He submitted over the weekend, I remember. So first thing Monday morning, I hopped on the phone with him to get a little bit more information about the house. This house is out here in Cold Springs, Nevada, about 20 minutes north of Reno. So kind of a rural area, a lot of manufactured homes out here, which is what this one is. A couple stick-built neighborhoods as well, but the majority of this area is all manufactured. This dude, when I got on the phone with him, this is exactly what you want to hear, like the most motivation I've ever heard. I was like, hey, you know, this is Alex, giving you a call back about the house out in Cold Springs. And his response was, are you buying it today or tomorrow? I was like, hey, you know, whenever we can do it. And so I got a little bit of information about it. But, you know, I didn't even really talk price with him too much. Just from that statement alone, I knew he was motivated. So I wanted to take the appointment as soon as we could. So, you know, hey, when can I come take a look at it? And he's like, I'm here all the time. I was like, cool, you know, give me 25 minutes and I'll be out there. So I came out right away and I met with the seller. So right before I came out here, I did pull some comps on the property and do a little bit of research on my end in, you know, 10, 15 minutes just to see what our resale value would be. Cause everything, we treat all the leads like we're gonna buy them. It's never like we have to wholesale this one. So with mobile homes, the two things that I look at are year built and if it's been moved more than once. If it's built after 1976, that's a good thing. It will lend FHA if it's on the proper foundation. And if it has not been moved more than once, meaning from the factory where it's built to the current site, that's also a good thing. Also lendable FHA. This one, when I checked the title report on Nevada Manufactured Housing Division, it had been moved more than once. So that's a bad thing. We can still buy these houses and retail buyers can still buy them, but not with FHA financing. At that point, you're basically waiting for a cash buyer or a VA loan. Your hold time is longer and your valuation drops by 20 or 30,000. So it's important to check that stuff before I took the appointment, because when I'm out here, my goal is to get the contract. I don't want to be renegotiating if I don't have to. So if I'm way off on my valuation, I would definitely have to renegotiate later on. So I drove all the way out here, and on the appointment, I'm shooting photos and then I'm estimating rehab, and I already have our exit value plugged into our spreadsheet that we underwrite deals in. So I'm just estimating what the rehab would be, and then it's spitting me out a number that is our offer number. So the seller had told me on the call that he owed about $180,000 on the property, and that was kind of right where our offer needed to be. And really, I would have wanted it for less, like $175, especially this place being moved and the extra hold time and all that stuff. Talked with him a little bit, and you know, he understood that it's been moved and that's why we couldn't pay as much and all that. Ended up getting it under contract for $185. So he was only going to walk with about $5,000 after paying off the mortgage at closing. So now once I locked up the deal under contract, now we're at the point where we make a decision. Do we actually want to buy this thing, flip it and resell it like we usually do? Or do we want to wholesale it to another buyer, make some money up front and be done with it? So this type of inventory and where the market's at right now, called Wes, my partner, and we kind of made the decision that we should wholesale this one. Let's keep focusing on the flips that we have, try to get some more flips that are closer to town and stick-built houses, and let another buyer deal with this and possibly holding it longer than we want to. So since I started out wholesaling before I ever flipped, I have a pretty good relationship with a lot of the the legit buyers in town. I don't really wholesale in the traditional sense where I blast it out to a big list of cash buyers. I just go to the same few people that I know, I know where their numbers are. They're a little bit tighter than ours, and I know that they will perform when they say they're going to, so there will be no drama at closing, unless it's for a really good reason. So I called one of them and I said, hey, I have this deal, you know, I'll send you the photos, this and that. And I already knew that they would pay around $200,000 for the deal. And so I just pitched it to them, you know, 205, it's yours, told them it was moved, all that stuff, and let them make their own decision. So they came back kind of low at first. They said like 187. And you know, I hit them up and I'm like, hey, you know, it has a garage. That's pretty valuable out in these rural areas in Nevada. And, you know, look at this comp, you know, can you do 200? And he was like, yeah, that's fine. You know, funny enough, the investment scene is so small around here. That buyer had actually already came and walked this property like 3 weeks ago. And he was like, hey, dude, like what? Yeah, I had that guy in my office. He was ready to sign at 185. What happened? I'm like, I don't know, but I have the contract. And I was like, do you even need to walk it again? He's like, no, we're good. So I didn't even have to set up an inspection for those guys to come walk it again, since they just had. All I did was assign, you know, have an assignment contract in place for the $200,000 sale price. So to quickly go through the contracts, how those work, I have a contract with the seller for $185,000. I now have a contract with the end buyer for their purchase price of $200,000. So at closing, buyer wires in $200,000, seller gets the $185 that we agreed on, and I get the $15 in between. That's exactly how wholesaling works. Sounds simple enough, right? Wrong. There's always something that goes on, but my main point of explaining how easy that situation was with the buyer is that one of the main questions that new wholesalers have is, how do I build my cash buyers list? It's really not hard to figure out who's doing a bunch of deals in town. You don't have to have a huge list of 200, 300 cash buyers to wholesale. You really only need one buyer that you know buys a bunch of deals and that they're gonna perform when they say they're gonna perform. And that's case in point here. I hit up one person, they say yes, boom, deal's done. I don't have to deal with shopping it and showing this property to a bunch of different buyers and inconveniencing the seller, going through all that stuff. It's totally unnecessary. So the first minor complication with this deal is that the seller required a holdback situation at closing. So we put those in place when the seller actually needs the funds from closing to move. So typically we don't like to do that, but you know, if that's what the seller needs, this is all about convenience for them, so we'll give it to them. How that works is that we will wire the entire amount into escrow. Escrow cuts them a check at closing for the entire amount minus $5,000. They hold back $5,000. So that gives the seller enough money to get moved out. And then when we confirm the property's vacant, we release the other $5,000 to them. And if it's not vacant, agreed amount of time, then we keep the $5,000. So it's protection for us because that motivates them to get out. So they're not like, oh yeah, dude, it's cool, like I'll be out in a week, and then fast forward 4 months, you can't get them out of here because you can't evict people right now. So he wanted the holdback. I said, no problem, let's do that. This was kind of my mistake. I should have put 2 and 2 together. We always do a $5,000 holdback. If you remember what I said earlier, he owed $180,000. We're only paying $185,000. So if we held back $5,000, he gets 0 at closing. That doesn't do anything for needing money to move. So we signed the holdback, and I overlooked that, as did the seller. And then a couple days goes by and he kind of figures that out. So he calls me, explains the situation, and I was like, cool, you know what, how much do you need to move? He just wanted to rent a U-Haul. It was like $1,600. He was like, $2,000 would get it done. I was like, all right, cool, let's change the holdback to $3,000 so you can get your $2,000 at closing to get moved out with. He said, sure, no problem. So I sent him the same agreement over DocuSign, same exact holdback that he had already signed for the $5,000, just changed it to $3,000. Cool, I thought everything was good. He signed the agreement over the weekend, and then I got another email the next day on Sunday that said, I didn't really understand what it said, but it had the word cancel in it. And I'm like, okay, that's not good, but I'll hit him up tomorrow on Monday and see what's going on. So I let it ride for a day, and sure enough, Monday morning, first thing, he's calling me. I want to cancel the deal. all this stuff. And I was in a meeting, you know, I called him back within 10 minutes just to talk to him. I'm like, hey, you know, what's going on? He's like, I want to cancel the deal. I'm like, why? He's like, well, you keep switching the timelines on me and all this stuff. It was just a huge miscommunication with the holdback. And this was my bad that I did not clarify the new close of escrow date in the holdback. The original close of escrow was April 29th. And with the holdback, he's like, I want to close a few days early and then be out by the 29th because he had already scheduled the U-Haul. So I just gave him a verbal. I said, no problem, let's close on the 26th. You can be out by the 29th. And he said, okay. But it was my bad that I did not put that in writing on the holdback or the addendum that had the holdback in it. I just let it ride with the original date. So he got confused when I sent him the new holdback agreement that had his vacant date as the 29th, and it didn't say anything about closing early. It was just all a huge miscommunication, and he got flustered over the weekend, and it pissed him off that he thought we were changing the dates and we were going to extend closing and not do it early and all this stuff, which was totally not true. So I'm on the phone with him. I spent probably 20 or 30 minutes on the phone with him, just trying to explain to him, like, hey, like, okay, this is the timeline, right? Yes. You want to close on this date, right? Yes. I was like, okay, that's still what we have in place. But he was so flushed. He's like, I just want to close, like, it's off. So I couldn't talk him down. He cancels verbally over the phone. I was bummed about that. Of course, you know, I thought we were going to have a $15,000 wholesale coming in 2 days, and he cancels. So I decide, okay, I have two options here. I can just give up and say, fuck it, or I can like go out there. I know how this dude is. You know, he's a very much face-to-face type of person. He doesn't do internet, he doesn't do phone. So let me go out there and try to talk to him a little bit. It's worth a shot for 15 grand. So that's exactly what I did. I just drove all the way out here again, another 30-minute drive, and I stopped about 4 minutes away, and I gave him a call, and I was like, hey, I just wrapped up another appointment out here in Cold Springs. Can I swing by and make sure that, you know, we're all cool? And he was like, yeah. And I figured that would be a more likely to get a yes than like, hey, I want to come talk to you face to face. Like, I'll be there in 30 minutes. He could have easily said no. So he was like, yeah, sure. So I come up, and of course, you know, that's exactly how I started. I was like, hey, you know, I just wanted to come face to face. I'm the same way. I get the vibe that you're kind of a face-to-face type guy. And he's like, yeah, totally. Explain the situation, and then, you know, I even like illustrated it for him because it does get kind of confusing with all these different dates. And he was like, yeah, that's exactly what I want. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. And he's like, oh, okay. And he's like, well, you know, I already talked to my friends or my neighbors or whoever, and they're going to help me complete this remodel, and then I'll just sell it on market. And then I'm like, okay, well, you know, I just kept talking to him a little bit more, spent another 30 minutes with him, and I was like, you know what? And, you know, just as I basically just took the blame for the entire thing, even though it was on both of us, and I was like, I see now how I was not clear enough with these timelines for you, and that's what caused the confusion. So as an apology, if you still want to do this deal, I'm going to give you another $2,000 out of what would have been my cut. So your new purchase price will be $187. And he was like, okay. I was like, you want to do it? He says, yeah. So then right there in front of him, I put everything into writing by hand. I brought a blank addendum with me. I brought the original purchase contract with me. And I said, hold back, close of escrow, vacant, you leave your personal property, or whatever the other one was. So everything was super clear. I took out my phone. I took a photo of it. I texted him the photo, so he had it in writing. I have it in writing. I submitted it to escrow, and the deal ended up closing just fine, on time. But major hiccup because we thought we were going to cancel the deal, and then we only made $13,000 instead of $15,000. Well worth the drive out here, and minus $2,000 to make 13 when I would have made zero if I didn't put in that extra effort there. So you guys saw the $13,000 wholesale check from the first clip. Buyer just closed on this one a couple days ago, so now they can get to work out here. We're out of the deal completely now. We just made the 13 grand up front. So hopefully I did a decent job of walking you guys through that deal from front to back, everything from where we got the deal, how we got the deal under contract, the appointment process, the hiccups throughout, and then all the way to getting the check. So if you have any more questions about wholesaling or any part of the process, leave a comment down below so we can get them answered on a future question of the week episode. Thanks for watching. Smash that like button for us. Help us out with the YouTube algorithm, and click subscribe if you're new here. And I will see you on the next episode.